Tonight on the South Bank Show, we look at the life and work of Mike Leigh, who over the last 30 years has become one of Britain's most celebrated filmmakers. Despite hailing from Salford in Manchester, his films have concentrated on the lives of suburban and inner-city Londoners, exploring this often overlooked territory in minute detail. Leo Burley's film follows the progress of Leigh's latest work, All or Nothing, and I tried to get to the heart of the unique improvisational method which underpins all his work.
Look at yourself and relax and just say,
I've got very beautiful lips.
yeah. And I promise you, Ange, you're going to see the difference. OK.
Muppet. I ain't a muppet.
And you're going to smarten yourself up.
The day they machine gun the royal family, I'll come here and put a tie on.
You don't have to talk some rubbish.
Well, silly little saying.
Oh, shut up.
You shut up.
But the prison does exist. We're in it now.
You were just then when you said it, but you're not in it now. You're not in it now. You're not in it now.
Oh, no, sweetheart. No, darling. You've been ringing the wrong person.
3 little maids from school. 3 little maids from school.
Is it possible to talk about your methodologies, the way you put a script, a story together that then turns into a film, how you work with the individual actors? I'd just like to see if we could nail it.
The first thing that I think that's worth saying is that, apart from anything that I do, all art, as we are both aware, is a synthesis of improvisation and order. I mean, that's how you write, that's how I make things, and that's how people paint and so forth. So, in basic terms, I mean, what I do is to work with a group of people to make something up.
Hello?
Phil, it's me. Bloody hell have you been?
What's up?
I've been trying to get hold of you since 5 o'clock this afternoon. Your phone's off, your radio's off. Neville can't get hold of you. Nobody can get hold of you. What's going on? Where are you?
I'm on the A2.
Rory's had a heart attack. Phil!
What?
We're up at the hospital, South London General.
What do you mean, heart attack?
What do you mean, what do I mean, heart attack?
Is he all right?
No, he ain't all right.
He ain't dead, is he?
Each actor agrees to take part without actually knowing what the piece is going to be, or indeed what he or she is going to play. Now, part of the reason for that is, to a great extent, it's going to be a journey of discovery for me, and I'm going to find out what the thing is by the process of making it.
All or Nothing stars Timothy Spall as a South London minicab driver and Leslie Manville as his wife.
Just, OK, sorry, pick up where you left off. Sorry. Let's shoot it.
Before arriving on set, the actors have already spent several months in rehearsal, improvising their characters under Leigh's direction. Out of this process, he begins to construct a basic plot, and the dialogue for each scene is only finalised days before shooting.
On a scripted piece, you have a script, and that is your map of the world, and it's from that that everything stems. With this, you have no script, and your map of the world is the character that you create with Mike.
We basically just start with a character that he chooses, somebody basically from our life, and in our age group invariably, in the actor's age group, and we start from zero and use him as a basis.
The rehearsal period is the period of creating the characters, building the whole world of the thing through the improvisation and the research and the discussion. But not actually rehearsing the film itself. In other words, it's arriving at the premise of the film. It's making the foundations of the thing so that it's then possible to go out on location and build the film as we go.
Would in that space, would say, Tim Spall go and drive a minicab and things like that?
Yeah, all that sort of stuff. But the real meat and bones of what goes on is the characters and the relationships.
Sure,
and stuff.
Absolutely.
As time goes by, he will introduce other characters into your character's life. So, for example, there was a point when my character Penny met Tim Spall's character Phil, and they became a couple, and then they had 2 children, and you develop it over a period of time and painstakingly create these people's lives.
And one of the page one instructions from me to the actors is don't try and be a writer, don't try and make it interesting, simply be truthful, do what the character would do.
Action.
Mum, Dad's here.
It's only allowed 2 by the bed.
Yeah. I'll wait outside then.
Don't be stupid, you've only just got here. No, it's all right. Get yourself a cup of tea. Yeah, I'll wait outside.
Cut. Right. Good. Check the gate, please.
Check the gate.
So have
do stills,
an
please.
alternative.
He is 100% the dramateur. He is the author, because although you may be coming up with the lines, he's manipulating you, there's the wrong word, or guiding you into a position of where he's juxtaposing it against everything else that's happening.
Part of my ordinary writer's function is to decide, to construct plots. You know, you can improvise for a zillion years, but a heart attack has to be decided as a dramatic device. My job is to make that work in such a way as it doesn't throw out of the window or contradict, from the point of view of the actors with their characters, the work that I've done with them in creating this world in an organic way.
So that's the first shot.
I don't know what's going to happen next, because we haven't addressed it in an improvisation yet. We haven't gone there. I mean, we've built up to this. This is an apex of a certain journey in the characters' lives. In my character's life, I don't know where it goes from here. We're about to go and do that in a week's time, back in the flat that they live in.
Okay.
Because each actor only knows about the whole thing from his or her character's point of view, that makes it possible to set up very sophisticated and elaborate, very real, improvised explorations of relationship situations in which A never knows any more about B than he or she would really know. And that because those tensions are real and the actors aren't pretending not to know things that they shouldn't, that it means it's possible, at the most serious level, to create a distillation or a metaphor for an actual real world.
Where have you been?
Out and about, you know.
Where?
A long run down.
You're supposed to be a taxi, Phil. What are you doing with your radio switched off and your mobile? What's the point? If we can't get hold of you when we need you.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
It's pathetic.
Leave it out, Mum. Stop having a go at him.
A lot of your films deal with families, dysfunctional families, difficulties inside families, intense family relationships. Is there any sense in which you're drawing from your own family in that?
Yes, never in an autobiographical, direct way. My old man was a doctor and we lived over the shop in the middle of a very working class area, and I went to very working class schools but was a middle class kid, you know. And those things are somewhere along the line embedded in some of my work.
Mike Leigh was born into a Jewish family in Salford, Manchester in 1943. He lived there for 17 years before leaving to study drama in London. How did you get to RADA? Was the idea of being some sort of artist in your family? Was that always a possibility?
I was rotten academically and as lazy as hell. I'm deeply lazy, I was. And so I screwed up the O-levels and, to cut a long story short, hit upon the bright idea of going to drama school as a way of doing something that seemed to be what I sort of wanted to do.
Had you begun with your, let's call it for the sake of ease, improvisational techniques? Had you begun that then?
Absolutely not. Never heard of it. It was very, very old-fashioned. It was very prescriptive. You learnt the lines and didn't fall over the furniture. You know, there was no discussion about motivation or character or background or research or the real world out there. And in fact, I spent, the whole time there kind of feeling this sort of tension between the potential of what one could do in real world terms and the limitations of what RADA was about. I then went to art school, went to Camberwell on the foundation course, and to the Central School of Art on the theatre design course, and also to the London Film School, and just was sort of gradually putting together, learning skills, really. However, at the same time, very interesting things were happening in the theatre. Apart from Brooks' Artaud experiments, the Theatre of Cruelty, the most important production was the Marasade. And the BBC showed a documentary of the rehearsals of the Marasade, and one learnt from that each actor had based his character on some actual case that he discovered in a psychiatric hospital, and a great deal of improvisation went on in the rehearsals. My feeling then was, if you can do all that, why can't you go that one stage further and use it not merely to serve a text, but to create a play? And so, working with principally amateurs, really, I started to make plays in rehearsals, which really is the roots of all that I do.
Over the next few years, Mike Leigh established himself as an experimental theatre director, first in regional theatre and then at the RSC in Stratford. He went on to create over 20 improvised plays, many of which are still performed today.
Although my theatre pieces are important and some of them have survived, the thing I really wanted to do throughout the 60s, and finally got to do at the beginning of the 70s, was make films.
Hilda? Say hello.
Hello, Hilda.
Say hello.
Hello, Hilda. How are we?
Well, I remember going to the National Film Theatre to see Bleak Moments. It was about disadvantaged people and a sister looking after her mentally deficient sister. And we thought it was pretty remarkable. We didn't think it was a wonderful film as a piece of filmmaking, but we thought it was something quite exceptional.
Were you setting out in that film to put into practice ideas you'd worked through? Did you have a sort of theory of, this is what I want it to look like, a theory of what, as well as an idea of what the film was going to be like?
I'd certainly evolved fairly rigorous ideas about how to make the work, and indeed the kind of films that I wanted to make and indeed wanted to see, in terms of looking at behaviour and reality and the texture of moments between people.
The problem with being a filmmaker in England, if you're doing original work, is A, you're cast immediately as somebody who's pretty arty, and nobody's going to want to see it. And B, it's very expensive, much more expensive to do than for television or to mount a play.
It was 17 years before you made your next feature film, but you moved into television and made a lot of films for television, and a great number of people of your generation, my generation, were moving into television and doing very fine work then. Were you chafing? Were you saying, I'd really prefer to be making films, why am I stuck in television? Or were you enjoying this opportunity to meet an awful lot of viewers?
Well, it was great, that period. That we now know that was a golden age of television, mostly at the BBC, complete freedom. You'd go in, a producer would say, this is a slot, those are the dates, that's the budget, go and make a film. And it was absolutely perfect for my kind of exploratory filmmaking. But I, and indeed lots of us, would sit around grumbling week in, week out that we were making these films, that we'd say, can't we make them on 35mm? Why can't they have, a theatrical release? Well, the people out there in the world don't know we're making films. There's an idea that there is no British film industry and all this stuff is going on.
It's alive and well and in television.
Absolutely.
Keith, no, you always tell me to chew everything 72 times. But I don't think that can be right, because, for instance, you're chewing nuts now, and they have to be chewed 72 times because they're very hard. But earlier on I was eating mushroom, and I only got as far as 31, and it slipped down my throat quite naturally. So it doesn't always have to be 72 times, does it?
Can we talk about one or two of these? What about Nuts in May, for instance?
Nuts in May, it was a play at the theatre upstairs at the Royal Court called Wholesome Glory, in which Keith and Candice Marie entertain Keith's brother, Dennis. and terrorising by making him sing this song, which was later transposed into the unfortunate Welsh teacher played by Tony O'Donnell.
Now, would you like to join in, Ray?
Well, I don't think so, really.
Yes, come along. You can sing the second and the fourth line with me, all right? I want to take you there, he said, I want to go with you. And then the last line is, I want to see the zoo, she said, I want to see the zoo. Now, I'll help you. All right, Candice Marie?
I want to see
Candice Marie's first line.
said, I want to see the zoo.
I want to take you there, he said, I want to go with you. That's it.
I want to see.
Here we are, Ray. Ready?
And the tiger.
Here we are. I want to see the zoo, she said. I want to see the zoo. Well done, Ray. It's lovely.
And we'd made this play about 2 or 3 years previously, and the entire time we were doing it, we kept saying, you know, we should get Keith and Candice Marie out into the countryside, you know.
One day we did a 15-mile hike. Without Mike, it has to be said, we were in character, me and Roger, with our rucksacks on our back. And we had an ASM following us with a notebook, which really, if it could have been filmed, I mean, it would have been hilarious. Can you imagine these two actors, completely in character, doggedly, you know, walking along the Lulworth Cove and wherever, with this poor girl traipsing behind us with a notebook and her anorak making notes on what we were doing and saying.
Of course, you know, it's my only, in inverted commas, rural, non-urban film, but actually it's as urban a film as any film I've made, you know. It's about all these urban people completely out of their depth in this alien environment.
And now stop what you're doing.
No! What the bleeding hell do you think you are?
I'm a good citizen who's aware of his responsibilities.
You're a bloody comedian, mate.
No, I'm not. Now stop what you're doing.
No! Look, I paid my money. You got no right to come telling me what to do.
Oh, I've got every right. I have the power to arrest you if I wanted to. Now stop making that fire.
You copper?
No, but every citizen has the right to arrest another citizen who's breaking the law. Now be told.
What law am I breaking?
You're breaking the laws of the campsite and the laws of the country code.
By the mid-1970s, Alison Steadman was not only one of Leigh's closest collaborators, she was also his wife. 2 years later, heavily pregnant with their first child, she starred as Beverly, the suburban hostess of Leigh's most successful television play, Abigail's Party, which attracted a record audience for a drama of 16 million viewers.
Lawrence, would you put a record on for us, please?
Yeah, surely. What would we like to hear?
Demis Roussos.
No, Beverly. We don't want to listen to that fat Greek caterwauling all night.
Darling, not classical.
Light classical, just as a background. Sue, do you know James Galway?
Yes, I've heard him.
He's a very up-and-coming young flautist.
We were just doing a stage play then. We were doing it for television, and, you know, we knew it was fun and everything, but we didn't know it was anything particular. And then suddenly, when, you know, the audience saw it, everyone was saying, oh, that was something different. They'd never seen anything quite like it before.
Tom, do you like Demis Roussos?
Yeah, he's all right.
He's fantastic, isn't he? Sue?
I don't know him, I'm afraid.
Oh, you'll like him. He's lovely.
Sue, he's really great. Sue, would you like to hear him?
Yes.
Yeah? Lawrence, Angela likes Demis Roussos, Tony likes Demis Roussos, I like Demis Roussos, and Sue would like to hear Demis Roussos. So please, do you think we could have Demis Roussos on?
Mike was accused of sneering at some people in the play, making these characters figures of fun, but I think that's ridiculous and unfair, and it really upsets me and annoys me when I hear that.
Were you surprised by that reaction, then? Did you see it coming at all?
No, no, I didn't. When that first happened, I was very surprised by it. But there is a consistent reaction of that kind, and you know, I've sort of got. I think I've sort of got the hang of it, and on the whole, there's a remarkable consistency with which it comes from people who, in one form or another, are writers. And I think there's a wall of prejudice of some kind, which is to do with really not liking to accept that this is a legitimate kind of writing.
Abigail's Party, like Bleak Moments and Nuts in May, was adapted from a stage play. Earlier this year, it was restaged at the Hampstead Theatre in London, where it originally opened 25 years ago.
Well, if everybody wants to listen to Demis Roussos, then we'll put it on.
Tom, do you like Demis Roussos?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, he's fantastic, isn't he? Sue?
I don't know him, I'm afraid.
Oh, you'll like him, he's lovely.
Yes, Sue, he's really great. Sue, would you like to hear him?
Yes.
Lawrence, Angela likes Demis Roussos, Tony likes Demis Roussos, I like Demis Roussos, and Sue would like to hear Demis Roussos. So please, do you think we could have Demis Roussos on?
Yes.
Thank you.
The play is not primarily a satire on, aspirational behaviour. It is, a tragedy about, the breakdown of marriages and relationships.
When I saw it at the theatre the other night, and then I saw the television version again afterwards, what had happened at the theatre was that it seemed as if the actors had seen the television play again and again, and I'm choosing my words carefully here, taken their characters from the characters on the television to a remarkable extent, which I think says something about the way the characters are created in the first place. I might be wrong.
I think, first of all, it's not true that they've studied the television. In fact, at least one of them has never seen it, as a matter of fact.
Sure.
What is for sure is that anybody that understands the general territory of the play, I have to say, isn't, a bushman from the Kalahari, basically, can take that text and breathe life into it and wind up pretty close to where it came from. But you're right to say that the reason why what's there on the page is so specific a kind of formula is because of the three-dimensional way that the characters have been created. I think you're right.
Mm.
Would anybody mind if I turn this next track up? Because it's my favourite, it's Forever and Ever, and I'd like us all to hear it. Anybody mind?
No.
No? Great.
What's it in it? Fickle finger of fate. I mean, if you knew what was going to happen to you and woke up in the morning, you'd never get out of bed. That's life. The old clock ticks, world turns around, tide comes in, tide goes out. You're born, you die, and that's it.
What's your missus make at Safeway?
I don't know, to tell you the truth.
Well, you don't know what she earns?
Yeah, enough. Well, gets the wall from the door. That's the bit I make.
We've cut the film. It's absolutely precisely edited. We took it to Paris to show the backers and they loved it. Andrew's composed the music and we're here recording it, and for the next few weeks up to Christmas we'll be dubbing it and doing the final mix, and then there'll be prints to grade in the new year, and by February we'll have the film.
All or Nothing focuses on the lives of several working-class families on a South London council estate, a territory that Leigh first explored at the height of Thatcherism in the 1980s.
Got any money?
No. What's the matter? Suppose you've blown all yours, have you?
What's it got to do with you?
It's my house, that's what it's got to do with me.
It's my house and all.
It's not your bloody house.
I live here.
Yeah, don't we know it?
I pay part of the rent.
Yeah, well, let's see your jar on that table next Tuesday. No messing.
So you're skint then, are you?
Did you ever feel that you were part of a political drive in the writing of plays for television?
Yeah, absolutely.
And how would you sort of stake out your position now?
Look at my work alongside, not least, Ken Loach's, and the notion of political has an entirely different currency. I defy anybody to walk away from a piece of mine with a very clear singular notion as to the one thing that I'm saying. But there's no question that what I still do, more or less, is to make work about how we live our lives, and to a great extent about ordinary people out there, and to take a camera and look at those lives.
Oi, cheerful. Want a drink?
No, I'm all right.
Get us one, come on, get us scotch.
Hey, mate.
What?
Do you want a drink?
Yeah.
Piss up, you black bastard. Nah, I'm only joking. Want a pint of lager?
Yeah, pint of lager.
2 points of lager, please, love.
3 points.
You ain't getting one.
Why?
Because you're an ugly bastard.
Is there sort of almost an evangelical thing about that, Mike? Do you think that these people are not looked at enough, have not been looked at enough, and I'm going to turn my talents and energies to that?
In the sense that, it's always attractive and seems important to look where people don't normally look. Yeah, absolutely, sure.
He doesn't believe they're all wonderful people. He does believe they're all worth observing very carefully. He's not a political filmmaker like Ken Loach, but if you were to say there's no politics in his films, that would be ridiculous.
He's a bit big, isn't he?
He was a giant.
No, I mean his head.
He's all right. And what he done was he wrote down the truth. People was being exploited. The Industrial Revolution, they was forced off the land into the factories. There weren't no working class for them. He set down a program for change.
When you came back into feature films after working in television for those years, what made you... Did High Hopes suggest itself?
Meantime and High Hopes, quite unconsciously, constitute a kind of general reaction to Thatcher's period that we were in. Meantime was about unemployment. High Hopes, we talked about being a socialist, but how could you actually be a socialist? I mean, what did it mean? I mean, Cyril, the protagonist, has got the problem of, how do you actually manifestly do something about it?
So what is it you do at these meetings?
We discuss things.
Yeah, but what do you actually do?
We talk about things.
So you talk about things, what good's that?
It gets it clear in your brain.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So when you're out in the street talking to people, you know what you're talking about.
Yeah, but apart from the yabba, what do you actually do?
We're working towards the revolution.
You're wasting your time then, aren't you?
Well, what do you do?
Sit on the arse.
I don't think I regard him as a political filmmaker, but I do welcome it when he's able to some extent, to let everybody shine when there aren't villains who seem to be put down for their class roots, which has sometimes happened in his films.
How about getting outside with a brush, giving the front of your house a lick of paint, smarten it up a little bit, eh?
Yeah.
And your garden leaves a great deal to be desired. You could have enormous fun out there.
Do you have green fingers?
My husband used to do all that.
Ah.
Where is he now?
He's dead.
Jolly good.
In High Hopes, the yuppie characters seem to me treated with a very broad brush compared to the others.
We could have gone much further, because the research that David Bamber and I were doing threw up complete monsters.
What made this country great was a place for everyone, and everyone in his place. And this is my place.
Yeah.
Fascist.
No, he's not, is he?
Critics still routinely quiz Leigh about the use of caricature in his first features. It's a criticism he's always rejected.
I don't think there are any caricatures in High Hopes. That's to say, I don't think that there are people who are not characters who don't read and breathe like proper people, like real people. But there's certainly an element of satire in High Hopes. I've always felt that the criticism of caricature in my films is misplaced, but I would have to say, if you remember the character that Timothy Spall did in Life is Sweet, Aubrey the restaurateur, he and his restaurant were just as far as you could go without it becoming caricature. I mean, it was pretty near the edge.
What's that, mate?
Nothing. Do you want a cigar, Andy?
No, thanks, mate. I don't use them.
Well, do a lot of liqueur.
No, Ton, I'm fine.
Who's that, then?
My waitress.
What, the big girl?
Yeah.
The Aussie?
Yeah. No, Kiwi. Fuck. Got a laugh, haven't you?
What's the matter, then?
She's, let me down, you know?
There is an element of cartoon. I think that's absolutely true. And sometimes I think it may be the result of an actor taking a character and building up a character and getting so kind of invigorated and excited by the extremes of that character that they will run with it.
Have you never sat on a bus, on a tube, walked down the street and seen somebody or spoken to somebody and thought to yourself, I don't believe that person? Life is full of the most extraordinary characters.
Great bed.
Orthopedic. £300.
How many does it hold? Oh, careful! Oh, dear me.
Aubrey!
You all right, mate?
What are you doing, coming up for air?
What a loss, that.
Because what I do is not naturalism. That's to say, what I'm doing is certainly not motivated by a desire just to take slabs of, undigested realness and just bung them on the screen. There are flights of fancy within the context of a real world.
He's looking at what he feels to be the state of England when he's making his films, at any rate, and indeed when he's writing his plays. And the state of England, as far as he's concerned, is, well, comic, but also rather sad.
In 1993, Mike Leigh turned his attentions to the underbelly of urban life in the darkest of all his films, Naked. David Thewlis's savage portrayal of Johnny, a homeless man on the run, shocked audiences and critics alike. Do you sometimes think that you're pushing the actors too far, or letting them push themselves too far? Obviously, I've read in preparation for this interview all sorts of things about actors being in character and getting involved in almost fights and all that sort of stuff.
No, I don't know what you've read, but what you've certainly not read, because it's never happened, is that, first of all, I'm very, very strict, right from the word go, that when people are in character, they're in character, but when an improvisation is over, my instruction is come out of character, and I am absolutely insistent that people come out of character, and indeed I do quirky things like, I insist that actors refer to their characters in the third person. So that they can
Johnny
constantly
would do this, really.
Yeah. Absolutely. So that there's no doubt that he or she is the character and I'm the actor, and they're two different things. Of course, in some way, if you're playing a Johnny in Naked or whoever it is, it's going to get to you a bit. But as to people getting into dangerous situations, I won't allow it.
Can you tell me something, John? What? What's all that about? That, the old Highland fling there. Do you know you're doing that? What? That, and for my next tick. That. Look, it just happened again. I'm not imagining it.
Fuck off, eh?
You do that in a sack with the old tick spit. Hey, Maggie! Must be a great fucking shag.
You're taking a piss.
You're fucking giving it away, aren't you?
Fucking come on, cunt! Get your fucking head open! Eh?
What's it like being you?
Eh?
Bit hectic.
Fuck off, bitch!
What is extraordinary about Johnny, about David's performance in that film, is he does all the things that everybody else does in all the other films, but on top of that, he really absolutely got his head around all kinds of stuff, not least by doing a lot of reading.
Are you not familiar with the book of Revelations of St. John, the final book of the Bible, prophesying the apocalypse?
Yes, as it happens, I'm familiar with all the books of the Bible.
I'm very happy for you. He forced everyone to receive a mark on his right hand or on his forehead so that no one shall be able to buy or sell unless he has the mark, which is the name of the beast or the number of his name, and the number of the beast is 666.
I know about it.
So he brings this stuff back, all the books he's read, and then you work it together yourselves. And then do you actually say, well, we'll take these bits? Now, they then scripted just before the take, or is he still improvising when you're doing the take?
No. There's no improvisation on camera. It's absolutely thorough. It's as thorough as the text of Abigail's Party that we talked about earlier. It's very precise. It has to be. His ability to improvise that stuff was fantastic. But you don't get organised, coherent dialogue. You get bits of it, but you've got to make it work. Apart from anything else, you've got to take out all the repetition.
Well, the mark, Brian, is the barcode, the ubiquitous barcode that you'll find on every bog roll and every packet of Johnnies and every poxy pork pie. And every fucking barcode is divided into two parts by 3 markers. And those 3 markers are always represented by the number 6. 6, 6, 6. Now, what does it say? No one shall be able to buy or sell without that mark.
We actually rehearsed and precisely defined that action by rehearsing at night time, because we felt to do it in the daytime we wouldn't get the whole feel of it. I mean, in a way, for me, the poetry of place, the sense of environment is part of as much what it's all about as the characters themselves. These things, again, are all part of a whole. And in a sense, that's why, finally, I feel that film is my more natural habitat than theatre, because the sense of being out there and breathing air and actually, you know, interfacing with the real world is part of the whole thing, the whole buzz, the whole turn on.
It's funny, isn't it? What's his name? Love. It's like a dripping tap. Bucket's either half full or it's half empty. If you're not together, you're alone. Or born alone, you die alone. Nothing you can do about it.
You're right, it is fucking lonely.
Mike Leigh is a star in Cannes, where All or Nothing was premiered earlier this year. In 1996, he won the festival's highest honour, the Palme d'Or, for his most successful film to date, Secrets and Lies.
This is stupid. I don't understand it. I mean, I can't be your mother, can I?
Why not?
Well, look at me.
What?
Listen, I don't mean nothing by it, darling, but I ain't never been with a black man in my life. No disrespect nor nothing. I'd have remembered, wouldn't I? Oh, bloody hell.
Let's talk about Secrets and Lies. How did that idea originate?
I know people with adoption-related experiences about whom I can't talk, and I wanted to make a film somehow out of that for a long time. And the other thing that became clear as I looked at it was that a lot of white girls in the 60s gave away black kids.
Tell them who you are, sweetheart.
It wasn't supposed to happen like this.
Yeah, well, it has, ain't it? So you tell them, go on.
Is it true?
Yes, it is.
Did you have any idea it was going to end in that kind of climax?
We had shot probably 4/5 of the film with the strictest code of secrecy on the go, on the part of everybody involved, including the Sparks and the caterers and everybody else, so that the actors never actually knew what the film was, except what they were involved in. And that made it possible to go to the location where the truth comes out, to have a rehearsal week at that location. And for the first day of that to consist of an improvisation where the actors were absolutely in character, and the most extraordinary things happened. Obviously, that 10-hour improvisation was not what you see in the film. That was raw material out of which I then distilled and structured and, through rehearsal, wrote the sequence in the location with the actors until we'd got the dramatic sequence that you see in the film.
Someone tell me what the fuck's going on?
She's your sister.
Maurice? Monica?
I always said she had a right to know.
No, Roxanne, sweetheart, darling, please.
I knew I was smack you, you slag, you fucking slag! Ain't it enough you had one bastard, you had to have two and all!
Stop it! Roxanne? Roxanne!
The terrible thing about Secrets and Lies was that it won Oscars, it won Cannes, and in a county as big as Kent, it was only shown for 3 days in one small cinema. But I think it's an absolute scandal that a world-renowned filmmaker like Mike Leigh is not exhibited properly in his own country. He certainly is in France.
Leigh's status as one of Europe's most respected filmmakers garners more than just awards. His films are also financed in France. by backers who, unlike their British counterparts, are sympathetic to his unique approach.
Mike Leigh for All or Nothing.
Financiers in general find it very difficult to cope with the idea of coming up with substantial sums of money for a project that has no script and no guarantee of casting. The idea of not having something tangible to hold on to that I can slap down in front of them and say, okay, this is what Mike wants to direct, then they find it almost impossible to grasp that. And particularly now that we're asking for more money. I mean, we're now looking for budgets in the range of about $10 million, and they find that really, really difficult.
It doesn't make it any easier for me, being the man with no script and little desire to tell you what the film was going to be about, and no desire whatever to discuss casting, all of which remain the case.
Not an easy sell. When somebody went to sell your film to a producer, they'd say, what's the film
Well,
about?
that's right. And
I don't know who's in it, I don't know yet. What's in it?
Absolutely.
Right.
But, I mean, you're a novelist. Don't tell me that every time you write a novel, you tell everybody exactly what it's going to... You tell the publisher exactly what it's going to be.
Yeah, but I don't need lots of money and lots of people to write a novel.
No, absolutely. But the principle, however, is the same. I mean, I make films like you write novels, in the sense that, one goes out and there's an exploration that leads to the work.
Three little maids from school are we, pert as a schoolgirl well can be, filled to the brim with girlish glee. Three little maids from school, everything is a source of fun. Nobody's safe or we care for none. Life is a joke that's just begun. Three little maids from school.
Can we just talk a little bit about Topsy Turvy, which would have taken your admirers and your people who've been following your work. Yeah, no, not people who've been following it. I mean, it was a bit of a surprise, wasn't it?
I sort of, on one level, I kind of felt it was time to join in the costume drama game a bit, and to, in a way, no disrespect to some other people, to do one sort of properly, i.e. to put real people and real kind of the substance of real moments on the screen. I just thought, take an actual chocolate box subject, like Gilbert and Sullivan and their operas, and subvert that by saying, okay, let's do it for real.
What happened was very peculiar when he made Topsy Turvy, because it doesn't in any way resemble a Mike Leigh film as we know it, and yet it's quintessentially Mike Leigh, because he applies the same insight to the Victorian world as he does to our world, and there are little moments of observation, like the way someone would speak on a phone when the phone had only been around for a few years.
Hello? Is that you, Mr. Gilbert? Hello? Hello? Good morning, Barker. This is Barker speaking. Gilbert here. How are we today, Barker? Are we popular or are we mad?
We are popular.
We had to get to the point where we could improvise in that period, in that Victorian period. Well, I mean, you can imagine every single thing that we do now in our 21st century life, you have to research it to know how they did it in 1885. So there was 6 months, and most of that was spent reading and researching and finding out about life then. And then eventually, I mean, quite late on Topsy Turvy, we started improvising.
1, 2, 2, 2. Come along, that's it. Very good. Excellent, that is exactly it. Thank you very much indeed. Excellent, first rate. Thank you very much indeed. Good. Now, Doban, that is exactly what I want.
I do beg your pardon, Mr. Gilbert, but I appear to have missed the point somewhat.
That is the very effect I need.
And what effect exactly is that?
Did you not see what they did?
Yes, they walked downstage.
They appeared to me to be ambling along the Strand.
Simply walking.
They walked downstage in the Japanese manner.
But in Topsy-Turvy, the interesting thing is one of the scenes where he's trying to get it more real, isn't he? I mean, he's trying to get the Japanese girls to show them how to do this. He wants it to be more real. And it seems to me that that's almost a metaphor for what you've been. You want it to be more real all the time. Why do you think that drives you? And how far have you got with All or Nothing, do you think?
It's hard to say how far, I've got. I suppose I feel in some way that All or Nothing. I feel that, a lot of ends in some way are coming together. I mean, apart from the need to be real and truthful and all those things, I mean, I have ongoing battles with myself about the architecture of the piece. I mean, one of the things I'm very pleased about with All or Nothing is the fact that there are a whole lot of strands that there are no loose strands. Everything has a function and it all pulls together and it all means something within the overall spirit of the film.
Where was you anyway? What have you been doing all day?
Switched it off.
Yeah, I know you switched it off. Why'd you switch it off?
I'd had enough.
You'd had enough? Had enough of what? Had enough of working for 5 minutes, so you switched it off? What can I switch off when I've had enough? Had enough of getting up every morning, going to work, doing the shopping, coming home, cooking the tea, cleaning the house, doing the ironing, making sure everyone's got clean clothes on their back. What can I switch off when I've had enough? Had enough of what anyway?
What I think you're asking me about, which is a kind of obsession about being real. I mean, frankly, that just seems to me the most natural thing to do. I mean, as a kid, watching movies in the Rialto, Great Shewsome Street, Salford, which has only lately been pulled down, I much regret to say, I'm very sad. I mean, I used to sit there watching films and absolutely, definitely thought, wouldn't it be great to see a film where people are like we actually are? Because, although I'm as hooked as anybody else on, the great Hollywood escapist movies, nevertheless, just the kind of, the sense of the real world is something that I just get a buzz out of making it resonate and happen and live.
You don't love me no more, do you?
What?
You don't love me.
Phil, what are you talking about? What's that got to do with anything?
It's got to do with everything.
Rory has had heart attack.
You ain't loved me for years. You don't like me. You don't respect me. You talk to me like I'm a piece of shit.
I don't.
You do.
I don't, Phil. I don't talk to you like you're a piece of shit.
You do, Pen. You don't know you're doing it, but you do.
That's stupid. That ain't fair.
Do you see yourself, I would guess you do see yourself on some kind of journey here. I mean, do you think that this is taking you nearer than you have been before to what you...
It's very difficult. I mean, it feels... I mean, all any of us who make things want to do is to try and get better. And in some ways, I feel that that's the case. But to say that it's got there would be entirely erroneous. And also, I think... in retrospective, there's nothing particularly wrong with any of the previous pieces of work. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, really, honestly. It's a journey. The journey continues.
Grant was an icon of the 80s. His records sold in their millions. His face gazed down from 1,000 bedroom walls. His videos are fondly remembered by a generation.